Hello everyone and welcome to another technical analysis webinar with Trevor Neil. Thank you all for joining us. As always, we'll aim to get through everything in approximately 30 minutes. If you have any questions for Trevor, you can ask them in the questions tab of your GoToWebinar control panel and I'll pass those on to him. We remind you that this webinar will be posted to our YouTube channel in a few hours time. So if you'd like to watch it again, you can do so there, or if you'd just like to watch a small piece of it, you can do so there. And we'd also love it if you subscribe to our channel and click on the bell to get notified whilst you are there. The webinar handouts can be downloaded from the handouts tab of the GoToWebinar control panel. If you're having any problems locating or downloading them, please just let me know and I'll send you a link. The first is a guide to the different technical terms and indicators that Trevor uses during the webinar, and the second is a CFD guide, which basically details the specifications of the products that we offer at FX Choice. If you are watching this on YouTube, these handouts will be available in the description box below the video. Please click Show More and you'll be able to see them. For those of you who don't know Trevor, he has over 40 years experience as a technical analyst and trader and was global head of technical analysis at Bloomberg. So Trevor, what do we have this week? Over to you.
Okay, yes, hi, thank you, Dan, and thank you everybody for joining us. Let me emphasize, I do enjoy having questions and requests, so please send a message to Dan in the chat box if there's anything you want me to cover, or if you've got anything that you'd like me to explain more clearly as I go along. So I do like to have questions. I don't feel it's just a speech or a lecture that's going on here. I like it to be as interactive as possible. Well, we start the week with some action, but let's look at the relative rotation graph of the currencies first of all. So most of you will be familiar with this graph. This is the US dollar in the middle, in the crosshair here. All the currencies on the right-hand side of this 100% vertical here are outperforming the dollar. This is Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, and so forth. This is the route that they're taking. And everything that's on the left-hand side of it is underperforming the dollar. So generally, things are moving towards outperforming the dollar on this dollar weakness, as you would expect. But it's what is doing that. On the vertical axis, we've got 100 again here, and this adds the secondary piece of information which is with positive momentum. So this Norwegian crown here, which is furthest to the right, it's the strongest of the G10 currencies versus the dollar, and it's also heading north. So it's heading, if you like, a northeasterly direction. East, strong, getting stronger, north, with positive momentum, which is increasing. That's a good picture, isn't it, of a currency? So the, if you like, in inverted commas, the best is the Norwegian crown. Now, interestingly, one that was the only one on the right-hand side of the dollar until recently, everything has come from across the left-hand side here, from underperforming to many of them overperforming, but one that has moved from being on the right-hand side, outperforming the dollar, to slightly underperforming is the Japanese yen. And so the two currencies, if you like, to be long of were either US dollars or the Japanese yen, but now that's a little bit slipped. It really is so close correlating with the dollar. There's no difference really between the Swiss franc and the Japanese yen and the US dollar itself as one side of your trade. But there is very strong messages here, aren't there, in which currencies to be in. Norwegian crown, oil currency, New Zealand dollar, commodity currency, Australian dollar, heading northeast, not yet outperforming. So maybe some interesting to catch the next big thing. Australian dollar, euro, Swedish crown here, Canadian dollar also heading strongly in the right direction here, pound following behind, and the stable Swiss franc and Japanese yen just correlating with the dollar. So it's quite a big picture, a change, because they were all under here previously, but in the last week they've changed dramatically. Strong bounce in the commodity currencies, and we'll see that in the charts themselves. So let's start with the euro, the biggest of the lot, and look at the weekly picture first. I had thought, as many of you know, high, higher high, lower high, potential head and shoulders pattern here, but the breakdown, if there was one at all, was false, and we're back the other side of the breakdown point here. It's not a head and shoulders pattern, so all that idea of moving down to 111 or anything off the head and shoulders is behind us now. The euros, as in the last 2 weeks, has moved ahead pretty strongly, bouncing at this big cigar, as Dan calls it. I call it really here, big cigar. Here, big support level, very predictable level for it to find support. The MACD is still negative, but it's close to crossing, and the RSI is looking good on the weekly chart. On the daily chart here, we are testing this important July high here, and so this 119 level, if it breaks, will release, I think, some more energy on the upside, and I think we have a relatively clear shot then between the 119 level and the 121 level up here. We fell very fast in here, and so there shouldn't be too much resistance if we make that break. The 116 level must hold here. That's the low after the failed neckline break. But the technicals are looking okay. The RSI is rising, the MACD is positive here, and the ADX, the measure of the presence and power of a trend, is at 21. So we've got a trend in play, and the trend is up. So it's looking okay, the euro. But you remember where it was in the RRG? The euro was right down here. We've got things much further over on the right of it. Let's look at the pound next, sterling next. This was further to the left of it, so not as strong. And there's the chart of not as strong, isn't it? It's steady, but it's not as strong. So here's the weekly chart of it, drifting in here. Maybe low, lower, 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 low. Still not really that strong. 136, major support for it. We've got resistance at 190 and very significant resistance at 140, and then above us here with these two highs together here. So quite a lot of resistance in the pound. Here it is. We can see a bit more detail of the resistance, 139 to 140 area there, and then up at 142 further ahead for it. We've got the two lows in here at 136. They're the must hold lows. The technicals are looking fairly good. The RSI is rising, the MACD is positive, but the ADX here is at 18. So we've got a very weak trend. So it's over on the left-hand side, relatively not looking that attractive. It's not looking unattractive, but it's not looking that attractive. But let's go to those commodity currencies now that we'd highlighted, and we were favoring for a bounce, and boy, what a bounce we've had. So here's the Australian dollar. Let's look at the weekly firstly here. So we had that breakdown to the 71 cents level, then the big cigar here. There's a hefty cigar. I might say this might be, the Monte Cristo #2, which you probably know is that torpedo-shaped cigar with the tapered end on it, very unusual shape of cigar. Here it is, holding it rigidly at 71. We had those two strong weeks after that. This head and shoulders did fulfill its objective, by the way. I know we're going back in time, but high, higher high, lower high, measuring from the head to the neckline, and the neckline down exactly where we did get to. So it fulfilled its minimum price objective exactly, and now we're bouncing strongly. Resistance comes in at 75.50. I should go to the daily chart to show that, but we are breaking sort of minor resistance levels here, and the trend is up in it. So look at the MACD here on the daily chart, very strong. RSI very, very strong, and the ADX here is 26, so good trend in play, much more attractive than the pound, for example. We must also look at the Canadian dollar. Of course, that's quoted the other way around, and so there we go. And so here's the weekly on the Canadian dollar. So rising in this is rising US dollar, and falling in it is falling dollar and rising Canadian dollar. And so falling dollar is what we've had here, so as with everything else, and the Canadian dollar a beneficiary of that. On the weekly, the MACD is positive, the RSI is okay, it's not that strong, and we've got some resistance here, and also some support for the US dollar, minor support around 124. But this pattern of lower highs is very much intact here. But it's got support, US dollar support, Canadian dollar resistance here at 124.50 area here, and then below it 2023 and 20. There is quite a lot of support around. The RSI is negative, the MACD is negative, and the trend is only 19 here. So, given the choice, this is not my best choice. I prefer the Australian dollar. Let's look at the New Zealand dollar here. And the New Zealand dollar, just to refresh your mind where that was, that's the second favorite on the chart, on the RRG chart. So New Zealand dollar. So again, this is quoted, the New Zealand dollar is rising here. Look at this strong move here, bounce here. So the weekly chart is bouncing from 68, breaking up here towards resistance, which starts to intensify from 72 to 73, and then we've just got that little spike top on here. But there's quite a lot of potential in this one here. So here we are back on the daily chart, breaking this resistance at 0.77080 and pushing ahead towards 72 or above. And we've got the MACD is positive, the RSI is positive, and the ADX is above 20. So a trend is developing in this. This is looking good, this one here. And Norwegian crown, I know I'm sticking a bit on these currencies, but I really want to go through them quite thoroughly. Remember what we were looking at? There it is over there, Norwegian crown. So how does it look on the chart? Firstly, the weekly chart. Here's this strengthening going on here, and it's great because it's got a lot of dollar resistance above it, and it seems to have turned down from 9 quite emphatically back towards these lows for the dollar, highs for the Norwegian crown. 82 it's got in on its sights. It has got a lot of consolidation in here, so that's going to make it sort of difficult to keep that lead position. I wouldn't be surprised if by this time next week the Norwegian crown is not the one furthest over to the right. The RSI is negative, the MACD is not yet negative, so it's not turned down. So let's say you'd be late to join the party for the Norwegian crown. So I think the RRG really tells the story here. This is the one you should have been in, but it's now looking like it's meeting resistance. New Zealand dollar is great. The Australian dollar also good, better than the Canadian dollar. Euro's okay. British pound, I like the trajectory of this northeasterly direction. It's an early one in stage, but I think that in the next week or two, you'll be seeing that crossing that line there. So the omens are good for it. And this area here, the US dollar, Swiss franc, and the Japanese yen, they're all correlating with each other. That means they move together. That means you can't make money if they all move together with each other. The money is to be made from things which are far away from the center, principally those that are heading northeast, those that have already gone, and those that are coming up. Okay, offer the most potential. That's the great thing about the RRG charts. Let's move now to the cryptos. And did we have any questions, Dan, on the currencies at all?
We don't have any questions on currencies, but we do on different markets. So when we get to indices, I'll interrupt you.
Okay, alrighty. Okay. Okay, moving now to the cryptocurrencies, lots going on here, but let's start again by looking at the relative rotation graph here. So in the middle here, we have the US dollar. Everything to the right of it is outperforming the US dollar. These are days. This is Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday on it. And you see here, our favorite of the last few weeks, the Ethereum, is the lead one here, heading northeast. We love northeast. East means it's strengthening against the dollar. North means with positive momentum. That's really great. That means it's likely to go further. Next to it is Litecoin, that dog the one that crashed hardest when we had the major sell-off, is bouncing very strongly here. And the Bitcoin, although it's toying with the 50,000 level, is lagging here. So of the three, Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin. So let's see that on the chart itself. Let's go in that order. So Ethereum, firstly, sorry about that. So here it is on the weekly chart, and look how this has powered ahead, made its break, and then we've got a strong move here. But the good thing about this one is we had a good clue it was going to be the strongest one, because it was the one that fell the least. So when the bears were in control during this period here, it fell the least, only 50%. Only 50%, but 50%, whereas the others fell more than that, and Litecoin crashed even through 61.8%. And so it had, when the bears had their chance, they were the least strong, and so therefore the bounce, not surprisingly, is hardest. But also, it is the one with the least resistance up here. When we look at Bitcoin in a minute, you'll see we churned around a lot at the high level, but here it was up, down in 1 week. So there's very little resistance here at the top, and I think this will be the first to make a new high. Look at just the spike there on the weekly chart. It was extremely brief. So we're powering up. The RSI is going up, the MACD is going up, so on the weekly basis, the technicals are very strong. Here's the breakout from 3,400. We cleared that powerfully last week, and on we go here now. The RSI, very strong, MACD is positive. The ADX, the measure of trendiness, is 37. It says we're in a strong trend. We are in a strong trend, and that trend is very much upwards. The 20-day average is pointing up, the 50-day average up, the 200-day moving average is up. The order is 20, 50, 200, and they're all separating from each other. That's a very strong long-term picture. Bollinger Bands are expanding, exploding here. This is a good-looking chart here with very little resistance above. Now let's go to Litecoin, if you like. That's the second favorite, if you like. So we've got the breakout here. Let's go to the weekly one first, because to remind ourselves, I've left on here the retracement from the high. This crashed to 61.8. This fell 70-something%. That's a major sell-off here. So this is the weakest of them. But we formed this cup and saucer type bottom here below 200, and then we crashed through 200, and so it had good potential on the upside for catch up, really, from this very low level. But look, we're a long way above below the highs here, but it is powering ahead. The MACD is now positive, the RSI is positive. It's a good looking chart from a very low level, so a sort of catch up type of behavior. And there's the breakout there from 190 crashing through 200 and powering ahead here. The MACD is positive, the RSI is extremely strong, and the ADX is now at 36, so a very strong trend in play here. So that's the second favorite, coming from a lower level. And Bitcoin, now let's look at the weekly chart of Bitcoin. So here you see, in contrast to particularly Ethereum, which was up and down, it was very brief into its high and then down. Very little trading took place, very little profit takers here. But there's a load of people who bought Bitcoin up in here, aren't there, who are just holding their hands together in front of their face and praying to get up to the 56,000 so I can get out and no loss. I never thought I'd see that. And there's a load of those people there. So that we're approaching an area of resistance. We're slowing as we approach it. The technicals on the weekly are still bullish, but we're coming into a very substantial area of resistance. So here it is going towards it. The RSI is bullish, but the MACD is not. It's lost momentum on its upside. To me, this is not that attractive at all. There, and given that we've got the opportunities in the other two, I know where I would like to be. But we are clearing 50,000. That's a psychological thing, but it's heading towards substantial resistance, and I do think this one will lag. So the RRG really tells the whole story extremely well. Again, Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin, but all of them better than the dollar, which is very weak. Okay, now moving into the commodities themselves. Let's start with, I want to start by looking at this gold-silver ratio because we've got a message here before I look at gold and silver. So this is gold divided by silver. So falling here is underperformance of gold compared to silver. We had this overperformance in August, topped out in the third week of August, and now it's turning down. Silver is better than gold of the two. So if you are into the precious metals, there's a very clear message. It should be silver, not gold. So let's have a look at the gold firstly, and here's the problem. It's simply going sideways. It isn't really going up at all. It's, you know, in the big picture over the last 3 months. Yes, it has gone up since that spike low in August. Most amazing spike low down there went down to 1,684 was the low there, and then it's bounced, and it's bounced to resistance. Sorry, I've got so many lines here, but they are all resistance lines. Now, this does mean that if we can clear those resistances, 1800 and to 1830 area, and we're right in that now, it could release some energy and we could have a flip back in that ratio, but it is strong resistance there. We've got support at 1780 and of course the spike low in there. But if you look at the silver compared to the gold, silver chart, and here the silver has broken up here, and it's there's these two lows here, then it's broken up. Look at the weekly chart here, and it's broken up. But I think the silver is heading towards resistance here too. Now think of the gold, you're in the resistance area and it can clear it, and above that there is some space, whereas here we're heading into the resistance. So although we've got silver dominating now, I have a strong suspicion that is going to switch around back to gold if gold makes the break to the upside, because that will release a lot of energy. But on the upside here, we've got a lot of resistance ahead of us, and so I think we could see some drag, some friction on the silver. So if I were trading these versus each other, I'd be currently long of silver and short of gold, but I'd be very close to getting ready to switch that around. The silver, look at this, high, lower high, lower high. What could you see here? So watch out for loss of momentum in the silver, we aren't seeing it yet, but it could come. So be careful on that silver gold picture there. Now moving to the Brent crude oil, we have had a big move today, a meaningful move today. Just want to show you the weekly. It's very important to get the context in this. I want to go back to 2019, bring that into the chart. That's what we're challenging here now, this high here of 2019. We've been struggling with that high. We've had 3 attempts at the top. This is the weekly chart, and 1, 2, and 3, and they're all lower than each other, these attempts. It looks, unfortunately, like we are failing here. So here's the weekly chart. Here's the high, higher high, high, lower high. We had some strong messages of bearish divergence, some warning that this might be the top. So look at the daily chart now, and I got this dashed line in here, high, lower high, lower high. They don't quite line up perfectly, but that's why I kept it dash. But it's definitely they are in line. We had this big cigar here. It's a long thin one, and a long thin one would be the Monte Cristo number 5. It is long and thin. It's about 6 3/4 inches long, and it's got a narrow ring gauge. Just you're learning about cigars. Probably not at all interested in them. Long and thin cigar. Here, so the declining tops in here, and here we're turning down. So it's a weak start to the week here. The RSI is turning down. The MACD is still positive here. The ADX is only at 14. No strong trend in this here. It's struggling. It's churning at an important high. I think potentially you know, this could be quite an important event that's taking place today in crude oil turning down, because that has an economic message as well. Okay, now switching to the stock indices.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes, Trevor, we did
yes.
have a request on the stock indices, as I was mentioning before. We've had a request from the same person actually to take a look again at the FTSE 250.
All right, okay, yeah. Which yeah.
Let me just take a look and let me just make sure that it is the FTSE. Yeah, the FTSE 250. So you can explain better than me, but you can't actually trade this, but it's useful to take a look at the chart. I'm sure you can explain why.
That's right. And whoever's chosen that, I can see good reason why he's chosen it, because I agree with you. The FTSE, the UK 100 is a very unrepresentative index of UK PLC as a country, because it's got heavy weighting of mining stocks and it's got almost no technology in it at all. And that doesn't represent the UK as a country and as its industry. And the FTSE 250 does. So if you want to say how is the UK doing, then the FTSE 250 is the thing to look at. If you want to look at mining and commodity stocks that are listed in the UK, but they may be in the Ukraine or somewhere like that, and they are FTSE 100 stocks, or hedge funds. There are 2 hedge funds in the FTSE 100. You know, so it's not UK PLC that you're looking at there, but that is what a lot of people trade. So we'll look at both. Let me start though, if you don't mind, with the US 500. That's a broad index, but you know, unfortunately also dominated by the tech element of it, and it's moving up very, very well. We're witnessing something, a once in a lifetime event, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I'm very old, as you know, and this is something that I've never seen before, a bull market of such length and persistence. It's going on and on and on. Look at this weekly chart here. You can't deny that. The RSI is still making new highs. The MACD is positive. We're going up and up and up. And so we are here too. But you know, it's not easy. I was, you know, I was talking on an interview thing, and somebody said, and I thought this was a really dumb thing, that if you'd bought Netflix at the when it went public, it has gone up 50,000%. That is true. But did you know the Netflix share price has dropped 85% twice? So this wasn't a case of sitting there and buying it. What wise person would do that and get the 50,000% increase? So I think most people wouldn't have done that, because they'd have been shaken out by losing 85% of your money twice in its history. It's never as easy as it looks, I must say that. You know, and you hear all this stuff about Berkshire Hathaway and things like that. It's just impossible that you could have ever done those things to make that kind of money. Nobody has done that, not even the Sage of Omaha himself. He's made a lot of money, but he didn't buy his own shares at the beginning when they went public. He made the price because he put something like 50 million into it. So
when you say Trevor, when you say the Sage of Omaha, who is it you're talking about, just for clarity?
Who do you think I'm talking about?
Was it Mr. Buffett?
Yes. Warren Buffett. The Sage. Sorry about that, but I was deliberately not mentioning names. I don't want to disrespect Warren Buffett, who I envy enormously, but there's an awful lot of rubbish talked about him. Anyway, this is a very strong index, and we can see that's the case, and it's still the case. And if we look at the daily chart, we got a little bit of slight loss of momentum, but you know, hey, we have those quite often in the rises, don't we? Sometimes they develop into something like this, and that may be the case. But what's notable about this market is how brief the dips are, just a few days, and we haven't had a 5% drop in this market. I don't want to say the number without really knowing it precisely, but it's measured in years. Incredible. I haven't had a 5% drop for a very long time in this market. So you can't argue with that. The technology element of that, it's not that, is the Tech 100. Also looking extremely good, in a way better, because it's leapt here. After stagnating for a bit, there was a time when the tech stocks were underperformers, but now they've reasserted themselves as leaders. US is a technology country, and it's looking very, very powerful indeed. And you know, look at this here. It's the rate of climb is increasing here. It's getting more bullish. More records are being broken. More, it's never done this before. Every time it goes to this value, it always comes down, being proven wrong. It's powerful. The MACD is going up. The RSI is up. The trend ADX is 17, which is surprisingly low, given what's going on there. I think that belies what is really happening. Let's move now, firstly, to the FTSE, to the UK 100, and this is my least favorite stock index. And the reason is the following, and we talked about this since I started talking with FX Choice, is that we've come up to, we've been pulled up, you know, if the wind blows strongly enough, even turkeys can fly. This is a turkey. It flew because the wind was strong in the stock indexes, but it was a reluctant participant. Why? Because we've got, I haven't drawn in here, a monster cigar in here. This is a Trinidad. Trinidad, despite its name, is made in Cuba, and that's the biggest cigar and the best cigar there is. Some people might say Cohibas are, but we'll discuss that another day. But here we've got a big cigar here, massive 4-year consolidation going on here, and it starts right now. So no surprise, it's stalled, it's hit its head on the ceiling. The ceiling extends all the way up to 7,800 here, and it's going to find it very, very hard to make its way through there. Think about the other ones that are all looking at blue sky above them. This is looking at heavy cloud, very heavy cloud above it. So this is going to, that's a big drag on it, and is going to make any further progress very difficult indeed. So here it is, flat in behavior. The ADX here, not surprisingly, it's at 17, a low reading. The RSI is at 59, just above the midpoint 50. The MACD is close to 0 and just crossing here. It's flat, is the message. This is not an attractive index. The all share is a bit different, not the same, so here we have got a resistance, but it isn't the same as it is in the 100. The 100, it's 400 points wide, and it's high, and it's 4 years wide. This is also 4 years wide, but it's narrower. And we can push into that, and we are pushing into that. It's still going up. It isn't flat, but it's still going up here on the weekly. So this is a better looking chart. But you know, there's a lot of traction here, a lot of friction. It's hard for it to keep on powering ahead. It is doing it, and we see in the shorter term here, we've had a nice run up in the last couple of weeks. The MACD has crossed the positive. The RSI is going up. The ADX is 11. That's a very low reading here. And, you know, given the choice that you have in stock indices, I hope you're not sort of doing it because it's sort of to do with patriotism or something like that. I don't think you should, patriotism should come into investing. This is a case where it'd be better to be not patriotic and maybe look outside your own marketplace because the opportunities are greater. So looking, we've looked at the US where the opportunities are best, but let's look now at closer to home, to Germany. So here we're moving ahead here now, and we're in an area of blue sky here in the German 30. It's pushing ahead pretty strongly. It's the RSI is in the top zone. It's not going down or anything like that. The MACD is a little bit negative because we're losing a bit of momentum here, so that's a bit slightly worrying for us. Here it is on the daily chart. We're gently moving higher, but we've got an ADX reading of 10. It's a very weak trend. the RSI is, is mildly bullish. The MACD is mildly bearish. So there's a clear message, isn't there? Here, put your money in the US, put your money into technology. However, there is something else. Now, some of you who've been on with us for a long time, my long-term favorite was Japan. And Japan has come back to life again with a dramatic effect. Now, we've had this flag formation, which we have talked about, and it has lasted through since March. We've been drifting down in here. I think it is a flag, so I'm measuring from here to here and upwards, but let me come back to that and tell you why this is so important. I'm going to bring in a huge amount of data here. I'm going to go back in times before you were born and look where we are now. So here we're going back to 1990 prices, 1989 prices for it. We did get right up to the high here, which was to 40,000 from memory. The actual high was 38,950 was the high here, right? All those decades ago, and we're shooting towards it. This is where I started with you guys here, 2020, and we had these three tops. The breakout here of it was what excited me so much, and we have moved powered ahead. Then we've gone into this drifting consolidation pattern. We've broken to the upside. I can't contain my excitement. It's a flag. I'm measuring from here to here, A, B, adding it to C here, and that gives me the 34,680. Not 40,000, but close to a retest of that all-time high. I think of all the things around at the moment, yes, the US market is really strong, but you're buying something which has really gone up a lot. And a lot of people are a bit nervous to do that. And, we're seeing increasing nervousness in all sorts of indicators in market breadth, in consensus feelings, newsletter consensuses, the amount of money, new money going into ETFs and things like that. There's increasingly reluctance to keep on following this high. It is following high. It's been, of course, maneuvered higher by the Federal Reserve, but that is the case. But wouldn't you rather buy something which is more closer to the early stages of its move than perhaps towards the later stages of its move? This is a wonderful looking chart here. So unfortunately, the activity on the daily chart is very gappy, but well, these gaps are signs of strength. As that top of the flag breakout, it's a terrific breakout. So here we are. I believe we're at the beginning of something, and we're at the beginning of something like that. There, why not? Flagpole, flag. The move is very often as big as the flagpole. So watch out there. There's a break also of the declining highs in the RSI. It's a classic. So, don't ignore what your eyes are seeing. All right, Dan, do we have any questions?
Just a FTSE 250 question this week, Trevor. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks for that. And thank you all for joining us. And I hope that you have a great week. And thanks, Dan, for looking after us. And may the trend be with you.
And also with you. And don't forget, if you are watching this on our YouTube channel in a few hours or so time, you can please click on the bell to get notified, so you can be notified of any future videos. And we'll see you the same time, same place next week. So thank you very much, Trevor, and I'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Bye-bye all. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.